But come on now, give her props. Do your due diligence, Elle. I give you an L for what you just said there. Welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect. First, before we get into the topic of this video, let me announce right now that you're going to want to be tuned into the Adrienne Ross Show tonight. I'm going to have DePope B. Frank from the Just Being Frank show on with me for a live stream. He just dropped some music, another CC22 song. He's going to actually join me for my members only live. And then he's going to cross on over to a public live stream. So if you're not a part of the Adrienne Ross Show channel yet, click the join button or go to the link in the description of this and every video and see the membership options so that you can be in on that exclusive time with the all membership, and then when also with us when DePope joins us. And then at 8 o'clock Central, my time, 9 o'clock Eastern, he's going to have he's going to join me for a public live stream. So either way, you can catch him tonight. Okay, let's get into this topic. Yesterday, Ken Swift over on X posted a portion of an ESPN interview, or I don't know if it's an interview, conversation between Elle and Gary, Elle Duncan. Gary, I have no idea what his last name is. I've seen him before, don't know his last name. They had a conversation and Caitlin Clark came up in the conversation. You may have heard about this whole MVP talk already, but you haven't heard my take. So hang with me for this video so we can talk about it. Let's go on over to X first. Now, I do not intend to stop a whole bunch of times through this clip. I may stop once or twice. I can't make any promises, but I'm not going to try to just chop it up too much for you. I've heard you. I've heard you. All right, let's go.
I feel like I know where you're going to go with this one. Caitlin Clark will win MVP.
That's a fact. Elle, she was as close to the second best odds to win it last year. And I think after we came out of the All-Star break, she had a couple of games where I think she was sort of like the favorite to win MVP. And this was no disrespect to obviously Asia Wilson or Nafisa Collier. And obviously Wilson, pulled it down the home stretch. And
okay, I do have to stop here because it's just so amazing to me. And I don't mean amazing like a wonderful thing. It's just so whatever. It's just odd how it was like you feel the need to make sure you say, well, obviously, this is no disrespect to Asia and Nafisa Collier. Since when in all of sports? Since when in all of sports do you have a conversation about MVP possibilities, about professional athletes or even collegiate athletes, where you have to make sure you say, I'm not trying to disrespect Asia Wilson or Nafisa Collier or whomever. It's a conversation about MVP about athletes. Stop it with that. Of course, Asia was crowned before the season already started, but it just stands out to me, this whole narrative. Don't step on anybody's toes. All right, guys, zip it. Here we go.
This was no disrespect to obviously Asia Wilson or Nafisa Collier. And obviously Wilson, pulled it down the home stretch and got another one. But Caitlin Clark being in that very, very short list of second best odds, third best odds, and I think that's where she actually finished in her rookie season. Yes. New coach. Okay. New veteran players, yes.
To be clear, there was never a time where she was the favorite to win MVP. There was a time after the All-Star break that she made it an interesting conversation because it was a runaway train for Asia Wilson the entire season.
I disagree.
Post All-Star break, I mean, Nafisa Collier is the one that finished second, but it became more interesting. It's like when Jokic is the undisputed guy, and then all of a sudden you see a guy like put together a really great half of the year, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander last year. So then all of a sudden the conversation becomes more interesting. But like they took the odds down. I mean, it was A'ja Wilson's to lose. But I will say a couple things. Do I expect A'ja Wilson to be A'ja Wilson again this year? Yes. But I also know there is such a thing as voter fatigue. They don't like giving anybody MVP 3 times in a row. They barely like to do it 2 times in a row, let alone 3 times in a row. I just don't see it simply because of voter fatigue. Like it just is what it is. I also think that Caitlyn was putting it together in such a way last year. They're only going to get better. And now they've got a full off season together. I could 100% see this happen.
First of all, it's funny in a not funny way that there is such a need to make sure you say, to be clear, okay? To be clear, she was not in the running for MVP. It was all A'ja. And, it's sort of like when you kind of, put somebody in the conversation, but they don't really belong in the conversation. It was no. There is a conversation going on. And he said to her, I disagree. She says, oh, it was just A'ja. And of course, it was A'ja before A'ja played a game in 2024. And he said, well, I disagree. But she didn't even stop. She kept going. I just believe that it absolutely leaves a bad taste in some of the sports media's mouths to even have to consider and say that Caitlin Clark could be the MVP. Now, she manages to say it, but she's not giving Caitlin credit. She's saying that A'ja Wilson will evoke voter fatigue. They don't want to give to don't want to give you the MVP 3 years in a row. Now, correct me if my information is wrong, but A'ja that wouldn't have been she hasn't won twice in a row yet, right? Didn't she win MVP 2020, 2022, and 2024? So if she won in 2025, that wouldn't be the 3 times in a row that she mentioned here a couple times. As for 2 times in a row, it has been done, only been done once by my GOAT, and that is Cynthia Cooper. But when it comes to Elle Duncan, when it comes to Chiney Ogwumike, even though she says Caitlin is the needle, when it comes to Andrea Carter, when it comes to ESPN, you get that overwhelming sense of let's make sure we put Caitlin where she belongs. And that is, no, she just wasn't there. Be that as it may, the idea that Caitlin might win MVP because of voter fatigue. If you want to talk about no disrespect and I don't want to disrespect and step on toes, then you got to look at it there because she doesn't even really give Caitlin credit here. She does say she managed to put it together, but then she immediately goes to they. And when you couple the team, with voter fatigue concerning A'ja Wilson, then I can totally see that happening, she says. So let's go to how she gives Caitlin credit and then pivots immediately to they.
But I also know there is such a thing as voter fatigue. They don't like giving anybody MVP 3 times in a row. They barely like to do it 2 times in a row, let alone 3 times in a row. I just don't see it simply because of voter fatigue. Like it just is what it is. I also think that Caitlyn was putting it together in such a way last year. They're only going to get better. And now they've got.
Okay. So again, Caitlyn was putting it together. They're only going to get better. Not wanting to spend too much time talking about Caitlyn's accolades, Caitlyn's talent, Caitlyn's hard work, and Caitlyn's skill. And yes, she was really in the MVP conversation last year, but they got better. And then, of course, there's that voter fatigue, and I can see it happening.
Simply because of voter fatigue. Like it just is what it is. I also think that Caitlyn was putting it together in such a way last year. They're only going to get better, and now they've got a full off season together. I could 100% see this happen.
Let me just say this. We all know that A'ja Wilson is quite the basketball player. Not trying to say she's not. But if you are an Elle Duncan or anyone else who's doing sports commentary for ESPN or any of these major networks, I expect your comments about someone who's MVP to be more than, first of all, she wasn't in the conversation. Second of all, it's because of the other player and voters having voter fatigue about that other player. And well, she was putting it together last year, and they. Now, granted, basketball is a team sport. MVP is an individual award. What you need the help of your teammates to do. Not saying you don't, but I am saying that if you're covering sports and having the platform and the voice and supposedly the expertise that Elle Duncan has, I would expect you to come not just with voter fatigue and not just with they are going to get better, but the fact that Caitlyn has gotten better, that she was already good as a rookie, that she broke multiple records as a rookie, that people were talking about her in the MVP conversation, they were as a rookie, and she's been working hard in the offseason. And that's why I believe she could absolutely be MVP. Whenever you throw in, well, it belongs to A'ja, and Asia's going to be just as good, but because of the other people voting, that's why Caitlyn will probably be MVP. Go sit down. I guess your point was that, hey, do you think Caitlin Clark is going to be MVP? And then your whole point in asking that question was so that you could lay the narrative that, yeah, I can see that happening, but because people are tired of A'ja Wilson and they're not going to vote for her for 3 times in a row, which is, again, unless I'm missing something, she isn't due for the 3rd time in a row. Anyway, ESPN agenda is so obvious, not taking away from A'ja Wilson. Let me make sure I say that because I don't want to step on toes. Not taking away from A'ja Wilson, not taking away from Nafisa Collier. But if you're going to talk about Caitlin Clark being MVP, come talking about the facts of her game and what she's already done in a season when she wasn't the MVP. But come on now, give her props. Do your due diligence, Elle. I give you an L for what you just said there. What are your thoughts about the whole MVP conversation and the lovely Elle Duncan and ESPN? I'll catch you next time, God willing. Don't forget to join us tonight. God bless you abundantly.